And we are live. Hello and welcome to Developer Insights. I am David.
And I'm Justin.
Together we are the leads on game development and design here at Codename.
Not only that, but we're also the founders.
Yeah, and we're going to be your host for this episode and for every episode.
Unless we're not.
It's been true so far.
Today is our 20th first episode.
20th first?
Well, yeah, how do you say it?
20th Oneth, obviously.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, the more you know.
Oh, I'm glad I can be of service.
We are here to answer your development and design questions about Idle Champions. And if you ask us about some other things or some of our other games, we might be able to answer those too.
And this time, if you don't ask any questions, however, you're going to have to suffer through Justin's one-man reenactment of the Hans Zimmer 2021 soundtrack for Dune. You know, I haven't seen it, but I can only assume that that's just uncanny.
It's 100% accurate.
Perfect.
Anyway.
As always, we pulled some questions from the previous shows that we didn't get to last time, and we have a few updates. So let's get to those now.
Yeah, let's start out with some updates from questions that were asked last week. Someone was asking about using the new CNE standalone game client and the Steam version at the same time. And we said we were going to look into that and make sure that would work a little bit nicer. And we haven't quite had a chance to do that yet, but it's still on the list. Another person was asking if the CNE standalone client is 32-bit or 64-bit. And the initial release I know was 64-bit. Then it might have gotten switched back to 32.
It was initially 32.
It was initially 32.
The test build was 64.
Test was 64.
But Peter promised he'd switch it to 64.
So moving forward, that will be 64-bit with new updates. And then someone else was asking why the trials join list is always full of 5 out of 5 parties that no one can join, and we thought we thought that was weird too. So I believe that is now fixed so that it will not show full parties that you can't join. So you just get non-full parties that you can join.
Cool. And of course, if that's not the case, I'm sure the chat will let us know.
It was the case a few minutes ago, so hopefully it still is.
I don't have a huge number of updates on fixes this week, but as has been mentioned for the last 6 weeks or more running, that Mark had been working, had dedicated time on fixing offline progress and Modron issues. At this point, that time has come to an end temporarily, or at least not temporarily per se, but it's come to an end through the dedicated time. We're going to watch and assess the state for now and watch in for new reports. And of course, if we continue to get new reports, we'll address those as they come in. But no specific update on the fixes this week. Okay, I think we are on to leftover questions, and I'm looking at these questions. I think these are all for you. So let's just start off. So the first one here is from Friday CWU, and Friday asks, would it be possible to get gold supply chests or speed pots available in the store for purchase for cash or for gems permanently? There's never enough speed potions.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good question. This is one we get pretty often. So not surprised that we got it last week. We don't have any plans right now to put gold supply chests or speed pots into the store. That could definitely change in the future. Obviously, you can get a couple of speed pots. You can get one a week from your patrons. Occasionally, we'll do a stream where you can get supply chests or a supply chest, and they pop up from time to time in some of the bonus events that we run in game. For example, the ICP, the Idle Champions Presents vote, I think yesterday or the day before, was between a gold to honey chest or a supply chest. Unfortunately, the gold supply chest did not win that one, but there's an opportunity there if you get your votes together. So yeah, we're not planning on doing anything more than that right now, but maybe in the future. Never say never to adding more stuff like that.
Okay. Next question here is from Lord Blackblood. And Lord Blackblood asks, hi guys, is there any chance of implementing some kind of in-game compendium containing all the creature descriptions and images that we can look at while adventuring? Imagine having all that info in-game instead of on a wiki page. And they're promising they can design it for free. Please make it.
Yeah. So we actually got a whole bunch of questions last week. People who watched the show last week will recall that we got quite a few questions about some sort of in-game compodium for seeing like adventures and the cinematic text and monsters and champions and all that stuff. And we talked quite a bit about how, yeah, it's a really cool idea, something we totally want to do. And so it's something that I would like to do to sort of update the in-game collections dialogue, is to update it to kind of show stats about everything you've ever seen and fought and defeated and adventures that you've done and gear that you've gotten, and just a whole bunch of stats and a whole bunch of progress bars, basically, that you can see, you know, what creatures have I not killed yet, what pieces of gear have I not gotten yet, etc. So that is something that we want to do. I don't know when that will happen, because it's kind of one of those things that would be really cool to put in, but I have no idea how we can justify it, because it's difficult to find a way to make that kind of a core part of the game. It's more kind of adjacent. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at on that.
Cool. I got a report while we were listening to that you were much louder than I am, so I've turned you down. So if you are not, so if Justin is now too quiet, please let me know.
I am, yes. People often complain that I'm louder than Dave.
Next question is from Valor Z, asking, what are the most valuable chests in the game?
Well, you know, I generally don't ascribe a value to the chests. They're like my children, and you know, I'm not going to pick my favorite one. But I think I think players, every player will have a sort of different idea of what their most valuable chest is. Do a shout out. I think at some point during this episode, we'll be doing a giveaway in chat, during which you'll be able to enter for a chance to win 42 chests of your choosing.
Make sure to choose the most valuable ones.
So you can choose for yourself, if you happen to win that, what chest would be the most valuable to you. I think for me, it'd be Modron chests.
I mean, from the question earlier, I think there might be a bias towards those supply chests.
Some people like supply chests. Some people like Briv chests. Bahamut. Some people are saying that's pretty valuable. Fortunately, you can't get Bahamut chests if you win the 42 chests from the giveaway. Silver Rosy chests, very, very good. Yeah, lots of insights there in chat.
Okay. Next question here is another one, or is one from Garwar from last week, asking, why is it that if you beat day one of a trial with each member of your group, you're guaranteed to beat Tiamat? There's no reward for speed, so what's the point of the rest of the days?
Yeah, so this is a good question. There's the initial balance for at least the first difficulty or two. Is based around sort of newer players in the game. So, you know, newer in that they've beaten the Tomb of Annihilation campaign, but not so veteran that they've got, you know, the ability to get to area, you know, 500 or 600 without breaking a sweat. And so the portion of the damage that comes from beating the adventures each day is going to end up being the larger portion of their damage for players like that, and the portion that comes from just the amount of damage you've done is going to end up being a smaller portion. But when you're super OP and you're doing a boatload of damage right out of the gate, it tends to weigh more in the amount of damage you're doing. Now that kind of switches around at higher difficulties, so that the day one becomes a bigger chunk of that. With all that said, we have been watching what's been going on with this, and there will probably be some adjustments coming to how that works. We might bump up Tiamat's health a little bit. We might adjust sort of how the difficulty works for some of those, because I'm not super happy with where it's at right now. I think that we didn't necessarily account for people always having maximum buffs to the assault party damage. So there's a bunch of stuff that needs to be tweaked there and will be tweaked over time, but it's not something that we want to just kind of react to too quickly. We want to make sure that we're making the right move when we make adjustments there.
Okay. I'm just going to actually make a note here because I was looking at the chat as it was coming through, and there was some comment around audio sync. And Garwar followed up saying that he can't watch, he only listens. So I did go ahead and add increased delay to our audio there. So if we're looking better, please let us know. Otherwise, I'm going to keep watching that. It would be nice if we could get that more correct, because I understand how annoying it is to watch lips move that don't match what's going on.
I think we'll probably have to do like a test stream after this one and just try and get it matched up.
Yeah, I think so. I know I see.
We can't get it done here.
Lauren in the chat saying the audio looks a lot better. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll test that and find out, because we should be able to get the delays right. Okay. Awesome. Actually, we're seeing people saying it's better, but we will perfect it, is what we're going to do.
We'll perfect it. It'll be amazing.
Yeah. I should have
come back next. Well, not next week or the week after, but the week after that.
So you're getting the spoilers. Anyway,
spoilers.
Next question, last question we have left over from last week is from Synesthesia, or Synesthethi. All right, we're not going to try that anymore. The question is, will nerds qualify for shorties/short folk for Ishii, Ashara, Lazab, Spinwin, etc.? Right now, they are a race that doesn't fall into any category except for non.
Yeah. So that's a good question. I'm not planning on adding the nerds as a as a short race, just because they're not really like a D&D race. They're kind of just, that champion's kind of for fun and not really intended to slot into and synergize with a bunch of other champions. So I mean, that might change if you can give me a compelling reason. Then I might change that, but at this point I'm not planning on putting the nerds race as a canon short race. Okay, let's go on to some new questions. Those are great questions from last week, but we're 15 minutes in. We should answer some of the questions that have been asked this week.
Okay, you're gonna skip question 1 there? Is that a?
I'm gonna skip all the way down to a question for you, Dave.
Oh boy.
Yeah. This is from Mest Yuval, who asks, would you increase the number of chests one can open at any given time from 50?
Yeah, so I tagged this as, more of a discussion question.
Well, I'm asking you.
I think I don't see any reason why we couldn't bump it up a little. The biggest concern here is actually going to be around server load, primarily because all of the chests opening an assignment of what items get assigned to be in the chest, and then that all getting added to your account and verified happens on the server. And so sending large chunks of these can actually, especially with large numbers of people doing it, could actually act as a bit of a delay for other players accessing the server. So we try to make each call to be short enough that we don't end up monopolizing server resources. But I think we've got a little bit of leeway on that. I think the big question on that would just be how much, like what makes sense, just from what players have available kind of standpoint. I don't know what your thoughts are on that one, Justin.
Yeah, it's tough because it's one of those things, like it really just applies to silver chests in general. If you're really like farming gold chests that quickly, or if you're getting gems and then spending them to buy gold chests, like generally if you let them stack up, that's kind of your own choice. Whereas silver chests just tend to stack up on their own. So, I mean, maybe it's something we can do special case for silver chests, where we just put in like an open all silver chest button, because they're generally going to be less taxing than other chests to open. So
it has a kind of please stand by. You push it and it distributes the load over the course of a minute.
Wait, we'll get to those. We're shipping them off to someone to open.
Yes. All right. We have to set it up.
Your shipment has fallen into the strait.
Oh no.
Your shipment has caught on fire.
Not again.
Oh no.
Oh.
Your shipment is washing up on the shores up island. Meta jokes that nobody will get.
All right. Moving on. Next question is from Volcas. And Volcas would like to know, can we get an option to replay completed variants with no rewards, like a free play? Some might want this for streaming, some for special mechanics. like raising undead to farm kills or something like that?
Yeah, so this is a question that we got quite a bit before we put in the patron system, because players wanted to replay variants that they had enjoyed before, or if there was, like you say, some sort of special mechanic that they wanted to utilize for farming or for buffing characters or whatnot, and It's not really something I want to do, just because it adds a lot of complexity to sort of picking an adventure, and I don't know. There was a reason we didn't do it before, and that was so you could sort of do something and be done it. There's kind of a feeling when you do something and then it's still there to do, that like you haven't actually done it, or you've done it but it's still available. It's just one of those game design things where you have to kind of make a call on it at some point. And at this point, we made a call that once you're done a variant, you're done that variant. And the patron solution to sort of let you replay them with some additional restrictions, with the additional patron restrictions, was kind of a meeting you halfway kind of on that question. And so I don't have really any plans to add an option to replay them again, but it's just not really something I want to do. There's not really much more reason for it than that.
I don't like this idea. Yes,
I mean, Zawan in chat there is asking because the variant is if it's a balance issue where some variants give more power, and that could be a factor, but it's not really one that we're considering when we're thinking about whether to do that. Simply because if we wanted to do that, then we would probably try and be a little bit more strict about people setting up those variants to farm from. We would try to find ways to discourage that if that was something we wanted to do, because there's obviously one thing some people do is in some variants you can, like enemies will spawn faster, or undead will keep on coming back to life, and you can use those to basically farm on certain champions. And so some people do that and some people don't, and if that was a factor in not letting people replay variants, then we would probably try and find a way to shut that down for people who are farming those. So yeah, it's not a very good answer, but it's the answer I have at the moment.
All right. Well, I'm just going to start highlighting some questions here while we're waiting.
Yeah. Here, we'll go to I guess this one's a question. What did this one in purple here?
Yeah. So there's a question here from Garwar asking, when you use scrolls in a trial run, is their bonus retroactive to the start of the day, or does it just count going forward from the time at which the scroll is activated?
So it is technically the DPS ones, DPS gold and gold find, those ones are obviously just from the time at which you use it. It doesn't retroactively award you gold for kills you've already gotten. But the assault scroll one would be retroactive to the beginning of the day. It's kind of what that the little shaded section of health on Tiamat's health bar is about. That's kind of bonus damage that will happen at the end of the day, given additional buffs or increases to your damage throughout the day. So it would be counted in that section. You wouldn't, like if you use an assault scroll thing, you wouldn't immediately deal extra damage or retroactive damage to Tiamat, but at the end of the day, that additional damage would factor into that little shaded section, and you do a boatload of damage right at the end of the Tiamat day. So yeah.
Okay. So the next question I tagged here was actually because I'm trying to picture what the patron challenge view looks like. So the question is, could there be some indication of which patron challenges have been completed, or which ones, if more than one, either some kind of log detail or highlighted entry on the patrons page, it's very hard to keep track of when you have multiple adventure parties doing challenges. And so I guess
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do we not have, is it not indicated which
So-
patron challenges have been completed?
It's so I think what they're asking is, it's obviously there's a listed, there's 10 patron challenges for each patron each week. It'll show you which ones are completed in your progress ones, but when you bring up the dialogue, it won't show you which ones were recently completed. So if you get that little tooltip that's like challenge completed that pops up underneath the patron thing, you click on that and you go into your patrons. You have no idea which one you just completed. So it can make it challenging to be like, okay, I've completed the one in such and such party, and now I can take that party and have it do something else because it's just grinding away on something that's not getting me any more progress. So I think that's something that that potentially we could look at doing and be like, this challenge was recently completed or completed in this session, or it's the one we were talking about just now and we popped up this tooltip. And then Plius info is also mentioned there, like you can't see your patron challenges in the map, which is another, I don't think it's specifically what this person was asking, but it's another thing in which we could probably address at some point in the future. So
I
think this is a good idea. This is one that I've been running into as well more recently, because I finally got automation on my third party.
Follow-up comment from Nevser saying like a bright green highlighted arrow on the challenge when they first open it that then reverses to the standard green on the next.
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly reasonable idea.
Yeah. It also seems like
for
there's
sure.
no reason why we couldn't actually have an indication of the challenge name in the tooltip that pops up and says challenge completed, right? Like that's could certainly give an indication there.
I'm not sure the challenge. I don't think we actually have the challenges have names. So I think we just have to pop up the entire
right, okay.
description, which gets quite long.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Going back up a little bit here, we have a question from OG17. Saying that it's literally unplayable. No, opening chests takes 6 clicks and 6 cursor movements every 50 chests. Could this get a usability pass?
Yeah. So what we did for this in Crusaders was we just added a open another 50 button. So you basically click a silver chest, you drag that slider all the way up to 50, you'd hit go, and then it'd open the sort of highlight ones. You'd say, great, show me everything. And then what we could do there is just have an open another 50 button on that dialog. So you don't have to click close and then click on the chest and then drag the slider up and then hit open again. So that would save you, I think, several of those clicks and cursor movements and make that quite a bit faster. We could even, if you use that, completely skip the kind of highlights cards popping up. I think the highlight card popping up is something that once you're opening like thousands of chests in a row, probably isn't all that useful to you. So I think there's definitely some pretty straightforward stuff we can do there to do the trick.
Right. Funny follow-up on the chat for the patron one. It seems they're pretty set on having just the challenge number and the name of the patron. Like completed challenge 5 for Mert. Yeah, certainly that could be added. It's not 100% descriptive of what the challenge was, but
it's a little bit down in the weeds of sort of
yeah.
Still doesn't really tell you which challenge. You'd have to go in and find it and then count from the top to see which one it is. Or I guess we could put the numbers in there if we really wanted to, but yeah. Okay.
Let's see. What do we got here?
Let's see. Here's a question from Volkas. And they say, when moving a Modron core to a different party, we get a confirmation that says, "Are you sure? I need to confirm this thousands of times instead of moving it back a few times if I moved it accidentally. Are we losing something important when moving a core from one to another so that you made this confirmation?"
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking about this. I remember there was definitely some issues around this at the time. I know certainly when you move if you have an automatic reset set, you have to be very careful about that, because if you move it from one to the other and you're past the reset, I think we turn that off.
I feel like the easiest thing to do there would just be turn off automation when you move a core to another party.
Yeah,
but
and then
maybe we didn't, and that's why.
That might be what's going on. I know it came up when we were initially doing it. It does make sense that it probably should disable some things as it moves. If it doesn't, you could get into a case where, like I say, you could be past the reset point, and then the party's going in the background, and boom, and you reset, and you're like, what the heck? So you definitely have to be careful. Garo was saying those got turned off. It wasn't originally. So the warning is from the pre-change.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I said is that the automations are getting turned off when you move it.
So that sounds like something that's just left over and could very easily just be.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the question then is, if those get turned off and then you move it back, do they get turned back on? I mean, it seems like.
Nah.
Well, no, I'm saying they probably don't. And that could be a very confusing state if you accidentally did it, swapped it back, and then start wondering, hey, what happened here? Because I thought my Modron was active.
But I mean, right on the party selection screen, we do show the status of the automation, right? We show the little red boxes or green boxes if they're turned on.
Yeah, that's true. I think it might be worth just updating the dialogue there to include. Swapping it over is going to disable the automatic. It's going to disable the automation. Make sure you turn automation back on, because that could definitely, if it didn't do that, which sounds like it didn't earlier, it definitely puts you in a position where bad things could start happening immediately if you haven't thought through the state of where everything is. It's like, because I'm pretty sure that did happen a few times before we turned that off. Okay. Let's see here. Next question is from Gab454. And Gab454 would like to know if it would be possible to add a decomposition of Bud. For example, showing a list of champions and their contributions to that specific hit. They're saying they're not sure if that would be a performance issue, but are wondering if it could be part of a pause function.
Yeah, this is a good discussion point from sort of, because I don't have a huge amount of insights into how the effects system is set up in this case, but I am not sure that this is actually all that straightforward to do. So for newer players or players who may not know, Bud is your base ultimate damage. It's a little number that's shown down by your ultimate bar, and it determines how much damage your ultimates are going to do, as well as several abilities. And it is determined by the largest single hit that one of your champions has done in the last little bit. There's a bit of degradation built in, so if you do a really, really big hit and then enough time passes, your Bud starts to drop down. And basically, it's that biggest hit that you've done. So showing a list of champions and their contributions to that specific hit, I assume we're talking about showing sort of how much they're buffing that champion.
I mean, that seems like that actually, not quite exactly the same thing, but all of the incoming effects, which of course are in that incoming effect list, that would be a big part of this. And then some kind of,
it's like which percentage is each one, and then of course there's global effects,
and there could be debuffs, or like if there's bonus damage on a monster for some reason.
There could be debuffs on the monster. There could be blessings or perks that come into effect on this. Like this is a small question that opens a huge can of worms.
I think it would be easy to get broad strokes on it, but having it be correct and having all of the details in there would be it would be very fiddly. There'd be a lot of
And I think the best you could do is maybe show like percentages or something like that. Like you definitely couldn't show like, hey, I did E to the 100 damage on this hit, and E30 of it came from this effect, and E5 of it came from that effect, because depending on the order in which those things are applied, if your base damage was only like 100, and then all of the buffs added you up to E to the 100, then the first effect that doubles your damage is only adding 100 damage to that.
Yeah, I mean,
you're going from 100 to 200. So
it does feel like this would just be a tree. This would be a breakdown of all of the incoming effects on that champion. Which I'm sure we could do that at some point. I think Mark would be able to put that together, but
it sounds very, very complex to me.
It would get hairy for sure.
Yeah.
But it's a cool idea, but it would be tricky to get absolutely right.
It's
There'd be a
cool
big
idea,
other
for sure.
header. There was like
It's like, we know about this. This accounts for about 2% of the damage, and then other is just stuff that's too
maybe
complex
not quite
to
that.
actually calculate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
One thing I will note on that is that a lot of the part of the reason that it's more challenging to do is because a lot of the effects and stuff get kind of cached and boiled down. Like, we can't, every time you do a hit, we're not going in there and like checking every effect that's affecting that champion and then, you know, adding all that stuff up. Like, we don't have that raw data at that point, because if we did, the game would run at 2 frames per second.
At least 3.
So a lot of that data is we'd have to sort of go back to the top and calculate it back down from the top of that tree. Anyway, continuing.
Carrying on. We're just going to carry on from that.
Get into the weeds of that one.
So next question here is from Cassius335, and Cassius would like to know, might have been asked before, but can we get a main menu or settings button for the map screen? So this is definitely a really common sentiment.
Yeah, definitely. We talked a little bit about this last week as well, about how on the campaign map screen, if you're not currently on an adventure, a lot of the kind of data that we'd want to show there, not the main menu or settings button in particular, but like the patron screen or whatnot, we just don't have data for. But in terms of just a main menu or settings, like, can you not hit escape from the map screen?
I thought you could
bring up
get
the main
menu from this map screen. Just doubting myself
so
now when
too.
I hear that. So I swear you can bring up the main menu. That would be silly. Maybe
there may not be a button for
there's
it.
definitely not a button for it, but you can
Yeah.
hit escape to bring up the menu. 99% sure that's the case. Otherwise, there are people wondering, how do I quit?
Chat is going to correct us.
Yeah.
They're
3,
going to correct
2,
us
1,
so hard.
correction. Okay.
We're just testing out to see what the chat delay is.
But in general, there's been a lot of questions about just having availability of other features from the map screen, features like the store, features like the chest opening screen, features like being able to see the patron challenge progress, that sort of thing. And so I do think that should have a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it is something that we should put on the back burner, on our list of things to look at going forward as soon as we've got some more development time on that, because certainly it's a requested feature. We see it a lot, and while it's not a deal breaker in the general sense, it's a convenience that would be nice. So
definitely.
This player's saying escape just took the map away.
Escape is available from the main map, and escape just took the map away. Well, now I'm getting conflicting reports.
Someone's saying, I heard you just freed up a bunch of tech resources from WebGL. That is
very true. That's one of the reasons that we are doing that. Yeah.
But we are still keeping the WebGL client up to date until the sunset date. So they're not quite freed up yet, but soon. Okay, next question is
keep on going
from the Mickey, asking about the E308 gold bug. Has the E308 gold bug been fixed? And if not, when?
So I don't think it has been fixed yet. It is on the list of things to look at, and we've continued to reiterate it's on the list. So it will absolutely get fixed at some point in the near future. It's one of those things where it's like, it's obviously a bug and we obviously want to fix it, but it's also one of those things that affects such a tiny part of our community. It's really just the people who are using creative mechanics or other resources to get that high and that far. So it's something that we want to fix, but it's not like a burning priority type thing. So it is on the list, and it will get fixed in the near future.
Okay.
Let's see. Here's a question from Lord Ice Dragon. My lord. They ask, would it be possible to get the number of familiars associated with each party in the party selection screen?
Yeah, I think so. I think we could do that if that's something that players are looking to see. I mean, right now I guess it just shows the filled in filled in champion slots, but no more information than that. So it certainly could have that on it.
Yeah, I think we show don't we show in saved formations like the number of familiars that are assigned there?
Yeah.
So we could just do something in a very similar way.
Little icon and a number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like Martin is furiously signaling to us that the giveaway will be starting soon. That's the giveaway I mentioned earlier for 42 gold chests of your type, of your choice, of a type of your choice. There we go. That'll be opening up very soon in chat. Just pay attention in chat. We're going to, you say something in chat. I think you say, thanks devs, once that opens up, and that'll be running for 2 minutes, and then they'll pick a winner. So there you go. Type that in chat.
Yeah, and then pick your most valuable chests.
Yes. What is your most valuable chest? Who knows? Well, you do, obviously. Let's see. Here's a question from Wigand, who really wants to know, why is Arkon left-handed?
Isn't this because his other one was cut off? Or am I getting the wrong hand? This is not
I don't actually know. I highlighted this question because it was interesting, and I feel like there was a reason initially. I feel like the initial reason was one of those like sword or shield axe things where he's got his shield, and his shield has like the symbol of Tiamat on it, and we really wanted the shield to be facing the camera. And since all the champions are walking to the right, he needed to be left-handed, even though maybe the character was canonically right-handed or something like that.
Yeah, as this was mentioned before, right, that often this is done because we wanted to show off a symbol, and that's how the artist drew it, and then it was like, well, actually they should be holding it with the other hand. But
yeah, I mean, I know we haven't done that in every occasion. I was just playing the other day with Celise, and Celise has her shield in her left hand and her sword in her right hand, so clearly we don't do that all the time. But I do feel like that is sometimes, or might have been the reason we did that back in the day. So
yeah, it's a mystery.
Sometimes we don't, sometimes we do. That's just that it happens.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's another question from the Mickey, who asks something you kind of mentioned before, but how's the 2 to 3 month focus on, or 2 to 3 months of focusing on bug fixing coming along?
Yeah, so I mean, as mentioned in the opening, Mark had been working on that since beginning of September.
Yeah.
And that period is now, for Mark's focus time, come to an end. And what we're going to do right now is take a look at sort of how that's, we're going to get an assessment of what actually got taken care of. Because we've got a fairly large spreadsheet of the reports that we took from the bug tracking that's built into the ticket system. And we went through those and we prioritized them all. We went down the ones that were from highest priority to lowest priority. Although I know when Peter put them in, he was like, all of them were like highest impact, highest priority. And there was probably about 20 at the top that had that designation. And of those, I think about 19 of them got corrected. So I think it went quite well. But what we're going to do is we're going to update the bug tracking page to have sort of a bugs reported since probably, I think Peter hasn't gotten to this yet. So it'll probably be since, this probably next week would be my guess, provided I can you can find time to do that, and I'm going to lean on him to see that it can happen soon, so that we can see new reports. New reports are what are important, because a lot of those old ones had been there for, actually some of them have been a really disappointing large number of months, from early on in the release of Modron. And so we want to isolate those because players come in and they see a bug report that's very similar or sounds similar enough to what they're reporting, and they're like +1, and it can be actually pretty difficult to tell at that point, because I guess it's a combination of things, and I think Mark found a lot of this while he was working on it, was that various issues actually can have multiple sources, and there can be multiple things that have very similar looking results, like sort of similar outcomes. And so that's why part of the bug fixes was also putting in more and more detailed displays for how your offline progress went, so that you could so that it's easier to recognize cases where, for example, you hit a wall at, like, say, an hour, and then champions were knocked back, and then you idled at that for the remaining, say you're away for 8 hours, and you hit a wall at the first hour, and then you idled for 7 hours. That would be kind of a normal thing to happen. And then something at that point that often happens that's confusing is you come back and you progress. You progress a ton really quickly, and you think, what the heck? I was offline, and when I came back, I progressed like 30 areas, no problem. What gives? And of course, what happened was that you idled there for 7 hours, got a whole ton of gold, which was then applied to your levels, which now you were big levels ahead, and boom, push you were forward, whatever the group you were supposed to go. And had you had just the game open, you'd have come back and found yourself still idling at that one area because you hit a wall and been knocked back. But that can be really confusing, and it can result in the bug reports that are like, hey, I didn't get the progress I expected, and obviously when I came back I could still progress, so the system broke. But making that more clear, that's what happened, so that we can isolate cases where it's like, oh yeah, this is a bug, and oh no, this is something that was expected. So more visibility into that. That's why that updated welcome back screen's got a bunch more details on it now. And then a whole bunch of additional changes to how party swaps work, and how the motor automation stuff works. And so we're going to be watching it, and we're going to be setting up a new or a clean list for those particular bugs, so we can see which ones are still happening, and then tackle the ones that are still being reported.
Yeah, I know. I personally have noticed that a lot of things are moving a lot more smoothly. The offline progress seems to be functioning more reliably. Getting champions from other parties is like instant now, which is amazing. The stuff we're loading formations with familiars that are in other parties, that has all been fixed up, which makes it a heck of a lot easier to set up new parties. So
and some of that was just changing kind of how we thought about how it should work, like the instant recall of champions from other parties. Is at the cost of losing about 5 to 10 minutes of progress on that party when you jump back to it with that champion. But the experience of just having that champion be immediately available makes such a big difference. So,
yeah, I think it's been coming along swimmingly.
Yeah, and as we mentioned actually previously in our previous stream, is that we actually had a new developer join us, and he's been working 100% on bugs, and he's not being shifted off to anything else. His job is bugs. Obviously, it'll take him a little bit of time to get fully up to speed on the game, but he's chewing away at the ones that he can handle, and we're still working away on the localization portion of the game, which is coming soon, TM. But the development resources for that are also going to be available for bugs after that's complete too. So, and those resources are going to be fully tasked on that until that list gets to a much more manageable size.
Yeah, and of course the time saved from not having to do conversions to the WebGL is also going to save us a bunch of time and free up some resources to really nail that stuff down.
So as Peter would say, hashtag back on track.
Hashtag back on track, exactly.
Okay, next question is from Hero Pro. Hero Pro would like to know, would you consider having the trial's daily restrictions rotate if the daily goal is not met, especially when you're paying for a high entry fee? Getting bad RNG can be very frustrating, and losing on a day would still be meaningful. Losing a day would still be a meaningful penalty.
Yeah, I think this is a really cool idea, and thanks very much for this suggestion. Because one of the things we're kind of struggling with but one of the things that we're considering or thinking about from a design perspective is how to make the higher level challenges or tiamat trials more challenging without making them just ridiculously out of reach. Because right now, obviously, we add a restriction and we bump up the area requirement. And that can certainly make things feel like there's just no way you're ever going to do that one, let alone anything in the future days as well. So I think something that maybe sort of changes up the requirement if you can't hit it, like this, might be a cool thing. Or maybe if you miss 2 days, it starts to take the requirement down, kind of thing. But we have to think about sort of how that would get implemented and what that would look like, and how that would be messaged as well. So it's a cool idea, and I appreciate the feedback. Let's see, next question here from Original Angston. They ask, why is there a refresh button on the Mount Tiamat lobby screen if it can't be pressed to refresh anything?
Yeah, so the answer on that is that actually it can. The refresh button
Eventually
is on a timer. I believe it's is it a 1 minute timer on that one, Justin?
I think it's a minute, yeah.
Yeah. And so we don't want you to spam that button. It reaches out to the master server on that one to get what active parties are in real time, and that's something we want because that's a limited resource. We want to make sure that when that gets when that button gets hit, it's to get meaningful data and not just to get the same data over and over again. So every time you hit that button, it disables for a full minute. And of course, the first time you load up the dialogue, that button will be unavailable until a minute has passed.
Some people are saying it's definitely not 1 minute. It's 5+ minutes, or it doesn't
work.
Waited 10 minutes yesterday and it never came back. Huh.
All right. We'll highlight that
a bug.
And pass that on to Peter.
Let's just zip back and say the intention for that button is what Dave just said. Yeah.
No refreshing for you.
I don't know if anyone is following like the Diablo 2 Resurrected saga, but I guess Blizzard or the division of Blizzard that was working on the Diablo 2 remake ran into some similar problems with their server infrastructure where certain things were hitting their master server in a way that, well, took down the master server, which meant no one could log in or do anything. So that is why we are so protective of calls that go to that one place. It is unlikely we would ever make that button easier to spam.
Yes.
Though if it never refreshes or it takes 15 minutes, maybe we will. I've got a question that I want to ask you from way down at the bottom here.
I saw that. You highlighted that. Yeah.
So this is from Fairytale 1975, and they say, it says on the screen, David, developer, designer, and Justin, designer, developer. Does this mean David is a bigger code geek, but Justin owns more colored pencils? Or is it just random?
Yeah. So that is on purpose. One of the what am I trying to say? So because of course Justin and I are the founders here, and we've been we get our hands involved in all of the portions of the game development and design processes, as well as all kinds of other fun company related processes. we generally wear many hats, but when it comes to the actual development of the games, I tend to be more on the technical side, but I do like to, whenever possible, get into the design side of it. And Justin, on the other hand, is primarily focused on the game design. But I think at this point, to his chagrin, is still forced to do development tasks.
Every once in a while.
Yeah.
You know what? I enjoy it when I pick it up. I got into this to do mainly game design, and obviously when you're building out a company, you still have to do a little bit of everything. But I still enjoy going in and messing around with stuff. So
yeah,
not a lot of stuff that makes it out into the game these days, but development, tools and whatnot for balancing.
That's
I
true.
just spent a week redoing our balancing tool so that it was easier to use. And
I think you do more on the development side than you'd like to admit.
I'll never admit it if that were the case.
Yeah, and certainly there are portions of the game design part that are actually quite a bit of fun, and so we have to have a little fight to the death over them, or at least still get to be involved, because it's always great to see your ideas come to life, which is different than being the one who has to make them come to life.
Yes. And there's different parts of, like, I like this question because we can kind of talk a little bit about sort of what we do here as opposed to specific things about Idle Champions. But there's parts of design that are really like starting out on a design and sort of thinking big picture on that's really fun. Like when we were doing the initial sort of brainstorming for the Trials of Mount Tiamat, that was really fun. We could just sort of throw ideas out and sort of spitball and see what stuck. And then eventually you get down to it and somebody needs to be like, okay, so these are the trials. What are the numbers for the difficulty? What are the numbers for the area goals? What are the numbers for the costs? And that kind of stuff can really get down into the weeds, and there's a lot of factors that come into that, and that can take a lot of time, and sometimes it gets a little bit less fun than and you sort of think wistfully back to when you were just spitballing and everything seemed so much easier.
Yes. And in that particular example, you and I did the spitballing, the whiteboard design, and then you got to do the numbers. So
I got to do, yes. we did the initial stuff together, and then I got stuck with the stuff that's not quite right yet.
But we'll get stuff there. That chat is complaining, or yes, giving you a hard time about.
Yes.
So that is a bus I'm not going to be under.
Nope.
Okay.
I've been run over by that bus multiple times.
Yeah.
Happy to do it.
Okay, back to where we were at. Here's a question from JFC Fuller, asking, at my level, most of my support champions give around an E to the 9 or an E to the 11 bonus, where Nova gives an E to the 15 to E to 16, even though the DPS meter fails to show it.
That's true.
I thought Nova was fantastic. Now I have Avern. When I swap him over Nova, I get an extra E to the 5 on my Bud. Is this working as intended, as it seems to make my other champion in slot 11 redundant?
Yeah, so I guess there's a couple of layers to this. One is, not all champions are created equal. Some champions just in certain situations will outshine other champions. Avern is one where he's got a heck of a lot of potential, and it's relatively easy to engage that potential. Other champions that have a lot of potential, it's not necessarily as easy to engage that potential. So Avern's certainly one of those champions that I think a lot of the community would flag as OP. But I think there's different situations where different champions are better, and some where they're worse. So Nova is a good example of one that she sort of charges up over time, right? Like you kill more bosses, you kill more enemies, and her buffs grow and grow and grow. And so maybe she's really good when you're starting to push super duper high. And maybe Avern's really good when you're just kind of getting started, but you got to have Nova in your formation for that time in order for her to build up that those bosses, those brains, monster brains and whatnot. So it's kind of how we try to design the game, where there's different champions that sort of excel at different places, and like I said, some of them excel quite easily right out of the gate. So the other sort of side of this is that with once you get multiple parties, or if you already have multiple parties, obviously you can only use Avern, for example, in one of those parties. So you do have to dip back into the champion pool in slot 11 to find some other things in there, or other champions in there for your other parties. And as we add more parties, that'll become more and more of a thing, where you'll have to dip further and further into your roster to find situations to make all those champions really effective and good. So yeah,
okay,
that's kind of how we approach that. We're done for time.
We are at 2:53. We've got about 3 more questions maybe before we're out of time.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. Next question is from Alpha Crawl. Alpha Crawl. Yes.
Alpha Crawl.
Alpha Crawl. Alpha Crawl would like to know any updates about Trials Reset. A Wednesday reset with 24-hour delay after previously finished, if you were earlier, would be the best, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I wanted to highlight this for 2 reasons. One is we still don't have a sort of an ETA on when we're going to adjust that delay. It's still something that's on our list that we literally talk about every week in the production meeting. And so it is something that's still top of our minds that we want to adjust to make the trials a little bit more user-friendly. And then the other part of this I wanted to address is just the idea of a Wednesday, a fixed reset. With the delay is something we specifically designed the trial system not to do. The patron challenges have a specific daily reset, or a weekly reset on Monday at noon Pacific, and every Monday at noon Pacific we watch the server status and we cross our fingers that the servers don't die, because it's just a very intensive moment at noon when tens of thousands of clients all reach out and go, we want new challenges, please. And the servers go, hold on, I'm doing this for the other 10,000 people who are asking me for it right now. So it's definitely not going to be a fixed specific reset for sure. But we are still looking into this. It's still something we want to address in the future.
You heard it. Definitely for sure.
Definitely for sure.
Okay.
Yes, no.
So the next question I see here, let's see if we can get through it fairly quickly. And we got one more, which I think is fitting for the end question, and then we're out. So this question here is from Captain Idjit. Captain Idjit. Okay. Okay. Very supernatural. Would it be possible to add the ability to lock ultimates so roaming familiars can't click them? There's a bunch of additional data on that question there, but I think the sentiment is that some ultimates change the stance of a character, and this is annoying.
Yes.
What do you say to those charges, Justin?
Yes, this is something that we've asked that has been asked about before, and I think it's a really good idea, and I think we'll probably do it at some point. It just hasn't been a high enough priority to get above all the bug fixes and future updates and whatnot that we've been doing most recently. So yeah, I think it's a really good idea. We would probably implement it to basically have, if you assign a familiar to a specific ultimate, but then have roaming familiars, that the roaming familiars would ignore any familiars that a familiar is already assigned to. So it's kind of a little bit counterintuitive into how that would work, but we'd have to find a way to kind of make it a little bit more straightforward for players. But we would definitely do something to that effect.
Okay.
The last question here, the last question from Sigma JT 234. They're asking, can we get a supply chest code next week instead of an Electrum chest?
So that is a great question. I think the next stream we should give them a supply chest. But
good idea.
We won't be on stream next week because next week is
spoilers.
A holiday here. That's Remembrance Day. And we actually won't be on stream the week after that either because that is going to be the day before we do our 24-hour Extra Life stream. And there's going to be lots and lots of prep happening here for that. But during the Extra Life stream, Justin and I will be on for a Q&A segment. I don't have an ETA on the time for that. But at some point during that stream, we will be on and live, asking and answering questions, not just about champions, but also just about Codename in general.
I think I would like for that QA when we do that Extra Life to kind of pick and choose questions that specifically aren't about idle champions and try and answer some other things and give people a little look behind the curtain at how things run here and what we do. Yeah.
So if you have ideas for questions for that. Mark them down, and that will be on Friday the 19th is when we're going to be live for that. But otherwise, that'll be the next time we are live.
Yeah, well, that kind of spoils my ending.
All right, well.
But I did want to just sort of mention my answer to the previous question might have been a little bit confusing. The thing I was suggesting was that if you have familiars assigned to both roaming and a specific, that the roaming ones would ignore the ultimates that a specific familiar was assigned to. So, for example, if you put 4 on roaming and 1 on Salice, then the roaming ones would never hit Salice's ultimate, and neither would the specific one. So Salice's ultimate would never get triggered.
I think the option that's been brandied about in the chat that might be useful is we'd be separating them as sort of like stance change or not. But I think we don't have time to discuss that right now.
We don't have time to get into there. So
read us out.
Yeah. So let's see here. Yes, if we didn't get to your question this week, don't worry. You'll have another opportunity. We will not be live again at this same time next week, as Dave just described. We will be live again at this same time in 3 weeks, and we will also be live again for Extra Life, as mentioned, not next Friday, but the Friday after,
Friday the 19th.
Maybe the Saturday morning. Who knows? Maybe Saturday morning at 3 a.m. Who knows? Probably not. Anyway, before we sign off, though, we'd like to thank our tireless mods who copy your questions into our question stock and generally make things awesome. Today it was Martin and Mars again, so thanks, M&Ms.
And of course, thanks to all of you for hanging out, watching the stream, enjoying the game. Without you, no one here would get to do what we do.
We'd have to do something else.
Yep, that's it. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everyone.
Goodbye. Also might be their evening if they're in the EU.
Yeah, I think it'll be during the day.